Good afternoon. It's 2 p.m. Welcome to the City Council special meeting for Monday, April 26, 2021. Roll call, all are present. And if you would, please stand and join me in the pledges. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you. Item number 4, we have no citizens that have signed up for any comments. We will have a period at the end if you have anything you want to offer afterwards. Moving on to item number 5, approvals and authorizations. Following are up for discussion, and the only reason for this meeting is the one thing, to talk about the Garden Ridge salary uniformity and step pay plan, and for council to have the opportunity to approve it. As a preface, to remind anybody that's listening, remind council that this is the next step in what we've been working on for quite a few years. And have spent literally hundreds of hours on. First was to make sure that all of our employees, everybody on our team, was operating off the same sheet of music with a personnel policy that they all had, that they all understood, and that all the departments had a role in crafting and articulating. Then from there, we went to the opportunity for us to let people know how they're doing, and through a feedback program, and to reward exceptional performance through the merit program. And that obviously took a lot of time, and you've approved that. Then the third thing is now, and it's kind of 3 and 4 together, is to do a survey of the area, the surrounding area, and ensure that our folks are being paid equitably for what they do, their work throughout this region. And then to acknowledge that in a small operation such as Garden Ridge, having upward mobility can be a challenge, but that shouldn't stop us from building in a little bit of a challenge and some upward mobility for our folks through a STEP program. And what we're here to talk about today is those last 2 things, particularly the STEP program, because we believe this is an opportunity to give some incentive and to reward our staff and our team members as they look to expand their ability to frankly provide some bench strength in some areas that we maybe only have one person in the office to begin with, that now they can work in those other offices and also expand their knowledge and their depth of understanding of the job that they do and the thing that surround their job. So you'll see in here that all the department heads have spent considerable time, both collectively and independently, to come up with what those steps are, as well as how we can attach the pay to those steps. It's a program that they're very proud of. Spent again many meetings, many hours, and then multiply that times 10, and that's what Ms. Ford spent making sure that it all was in one document. But so this is something that, as I said, is just a logical progression on our way to giving our staff and our employees a predictable and a great place to work, and making sure they know how much we value all that they do for our city. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Ms. Ford, and she's going to go through this. We'll have it on, you have it in front of you. You also will have it on the screen. And I invite you to discuss and ask any questions. Then you can expect, after we're all done with this, whether we're going to take action on the plan. And I'll bring that at 5A2. So, Ms. Kane, do you have anything to add before we hand it over?
About that, y'all. The only thing I want to add is pretty much repeat of what Mayor said, that the department's heads have spent a tremendous amount of time developing this uniformity and step and pay plan. We've had numerous meetings, and there have been numerous versions of plans discussed, evaluated by all the department heads. And the plan presented to you today is a plan that all the department heads agree upon and support, because we feel like it's fair and equitable across the board for all departments and employees. That's what I wanted to add. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. So council, you were given this ahead of time, and again, you have it in front of you. And now we're going to turn it over to Ms. Ford, and she's going to step us through it, and we'll have the opportunity to discuss. Ms. Ford.
There you go.
Maybe that should be a step. Okay, I want to thank everybody for coming out this afternoon. Your time is greatly appreciated. And
Aaron, can you pull that a little bit closer to you? You can barely hear you.
I can.
Thank you.
Again, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out. You're giving your time this afternoon. It's greatly appreciated. And it's my pleasure to be sitting here to go over this with you this afternoon. It's been a long time coming. So we're going to dive right in. If we flip to, let me say this first. I left you a new copy at each one of your seats, and the copy that's on the screen. There's a couple little changes that happened prior to or since the one that we mailed out to you or sent out to you, but very, very minor. And I'll point them out as we get to it. So if you go to, in the package, into the first page, this is a summary page. It shows all the employees that are going to be affected by this salary unification and step pay plan. It shows their name, their current annual, what the proposed annual is going to be, the annual increase. And then it shows if we did this effective date, which would have started the pay period as of yesterday. That would be 11 pay cycles before the end of the year. So going down about 2/3 on the page, you'll see, just to remind you, that when we did the fiscal 21 budgeting process, we budgeted $69,227 for this project. And this step program that we've done comes in at almost 73.6K. So there's a difference of $4,300. If you go over one column, you'll see the effective date as of 4/25, since we'll just be doing it in a portion of the year, we will actually be $38,000 below what we budgeted for the year. But the annual cost for the program would be $73,555. If you go down just a little bit farther, the last section shows employees that will not qualify for this program because as the steps have been laid out, their pay rate actually exceeds the step that they're on now. And I'll go over how we're going to deal with that further in the package. So if you flip to the next page, this shows the fund allocation between the general fund and the water fund, and it shows it as an annual, what it would be as an annual cost. And then over on the right-hand side, it shows it as it would be effective on 4/25. So the increase to the general fund on an annual basis would be almost 1.8K. And to the water fund, it would be almost 2.6K. One of the changes from what was sent out to you previously was Jacob was under the general fund and he should have been under the water fund. Does anybody have any questions on those first couple of pages before we get into a little more detail? Nope. Okay. So when we did the budget the fiscal '21 budget, the dollars that we allocated were to do two things. It was to be a STEP program for employees and also a salary unification for director level and above. This first section we're going to go through is the salary unification for the directors and above. So if you flip to the next page, you'll see in the top section, this is what went out with the budget. The top section was a 2019 salary survey, and it shows all the cities that participated in that survey. This is what we used as a basis for the unification for the director and above. The ones that are highlighted in yellow are the ones that we chose. Those are cities that are under $7,000, with the exception of Hondo, which is $9,000. We were really short on cities that I could compare for the library director, so I grabbed Hondo for her allocation. So the ones in the yellow at the top were brought down to the bottom section, and those are the ones that we used. So those were totaled up, and we got an average on what those positions are currently paying or were paying in 2019. But I needed to bring it up to closer to fiscal '21, so I did a 5% increase that was allocating 2.5% per year to bring it up to a fiscal '21. So if you just take the very first position there, the city administrator, the estimate for the '21 went from 116 to 121, and that's with that 5% increase, and then what the current salary is. So you can see that that position here in the city Garden Ridge is paid $10.6K below what the average is in these surrounding cities. And you can see that across the board. So all of them are paid at a lower rate, some more than others. So did anybody have any question on this page?
Ms. Ford,
Yes.
I did have a question on page 1, but I was shifting because I had some notes. How did you determine the maximum back on page 1, the maximum? You got a maximum figure. Is that just
For who?
for salary?
If you wait till we go to the next page, we'll
Okay,
be on that.
that was back. Okay, catch
Yeah.
up here. Thank you.
Okay. The one thing that you might be asking yourself is why did we not pick local surrounding areas such as Schertz or Cibolo, Selma? Those cities are much larger than us, and they have a lot more sales tax revenue that comes in. So we really tried to pick cities that were more in line with Garden Ridge. Okay, so if we flip the page, we're at this, the directors and above. And if you look at the first table, you'll see the position and then the current annual salary, what the salary survey says it should be, and the variance in dollars to the survey, and then the variance in dollars as a percentage. And then you'll see the proposed update annual salary, the increase in dollars to the salary, and what the remaining variance to the survey would be. And if you notice, there are 3 positions on this sheet that are still going to be at a negative compared to the average. When I laid it all out, the way we did it ended up being fair based on the years that everybody had worked at here and different jobs, and that's just the way it worked out. But it's a fair allocation across the board. The way we came to the salary range was in 2 of the positions, it's a 10% increase or salary range, and that would be for the administrator and the chief of police. And the other positions are a 15% range, salary range. And the reason we need a salary range is we need to have the flexibility when we have new people come in that we can look at their experience and their education and their certificates and what they have and be able to make a fair call on what their salary should be. The way it happens right now is the person who's leaving the position, the new person coming in starts at that rate. Well, they may not have the same qualifications as that person, so we want to be able to have something a little stricter, but something that's clear-cut and used evenly across the board. Yes. So, any questions on that? No? Okay. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the to the step pay plan. And the first thing we're going to come across is the policy, and I want to point out a few things in the policy. So this step pay plan makes it so that the city can be competitive with its salary, so that we can be attractive and retain and motivate our employees. It's a way to reward the employees for mastering their skill, their knowledge, and their certifications. And with that being said, we have to remember that as we train our employees, they don't only become more valuable to us as a city, but they become more valuable to other cities also. So we want to make sure we're paying them for what they're worth, because we'd like to keep them around and cash in on that training that we provided. So each step plan, or each step in the plan, is uniquely designed for the actual job title that it's attached to. And the step plan, of course, is contingent on the authorization of the city's budget annually. At the time of the adoption of the plan, if an employee's current rate of pay exceeds the step they qualify for, the city will continue to pay the employee's current wage. However, the employee cannot move up any steps until they meet all the steps behind the one that they're currently on pay-wise. Now, we're giving the employees 2 years that do not have all the qualifications that equal the step that they're on to get those, to qualify for those. And if they don't qualify for those within the 2 years, then it will result in a reduction of wages for the employee at that time. The directors, department heads and above do not qualify for this actual step program. All employees except certified police officers are only allowed to have one step advancement every fiscal year, and that's for the ease of budgeting. And the portion of except for the police officers, I'll explain that when we get to the police officer page. The approval of the step, which is outside of an employee's assigned department, meaning we have some steps that are designed where we have an employee in one department that will be cross-training with an employee in another department. The department head of the employee, or the department that they're training for, will be the one that makes the call if they actually qualify for that step. I'll explain that a little better when we get to one of those. And then this step plan is going to be reviewed every 2 years, and then if we have changes, we'll bring them back to council at those time. One other thing to point out is that the steps have been standardized across the board. So for example, a D water license, it doesn't matter if it's our court clerk, our utility clerk, our water employee, or a public works person, they would all get the same increase for a D water license. So we kept it very standardized across the board also. Flipping to the next page, or before we go, did anybody have any questions on the policy?
I have general questions, but it's probably just more like a summary thing that
Sure.
maybe at the end,
Okay,
instead of by page by page.
all right, sure. Okay, so if we want to flip on to the next page, this is an overall view of all positions, and this is really an information sheet that we're going to post to the website. So it has each position and the steps. So if we go to the next page, this actually starts the step pay program. So we're going to start with the administrative side. The next 3 positions report to our city secretary. So if you have any specific questions on the step, we're going to direct those to her. Each one of these charts shows the 6 steps, the position, and then what the qualifications are. It shows the hourly rate and the annual rate. Some of these steps have items on here that could be considered subjective. So each department head will have a checkoff list or a form that every employee who hits that step has to hit all those points on that checkoff list. So again, we can keep it very standardized. Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Spencer on the first 2 positions? If you notice, there's a lot of cross-training in those positions also. Okay, moving on to the next page. We have the Assistant City Secretary. This is an annual salary position. There is no per hour. Again, there still is a lot of cross-training with this position. It shows the steps, what experience is needed to qualify for each one of those steps, the annual salary. Any questions on this position? No? Okay. Then we'll move on to the police department's step pay plan. So this is laid out in 3 sections because we have 3 types of officers. We have the patrol officers, the sergeants, and the lieutenants. This is a little different than the other step programs because this one runs off of years and the license that they can have. This is why they can have more than 1 step in a year, because if you had someone who was, let's say, a patrol officer and they are at intermediate and they're in their 10th year and they jump from their 10th year to the 11th year, and in the same year they move from an intermediate to an advanced, you don't want to hold them back for that step. So they could have a step by year and a step by license. One thing I wanted to point out is, does this work? Yes. So in between these 2 sections, if you have a patrol officer who is a step 3 and they are at intermediate level and they advance to a sergeant, they would jump from 55,000 to 58,200 with 6 to 10 years. That's a 5.75 increase between here and here. And it'd be the same thing between here and also in the masters. In between steps are all 1.5% no matter what section you're in. So you had the same thing if you're in step 1 as a sergeant making 59,000 with an advanced license and you're promoted to lieutenant, you would have a 15% increase, which would jump you to 68,000. Same thing if they were in the masters, it would jump them to 69, and then there's a 1.5% between each one of the steps. So any questions on how the police departments works? No? Okay. Moving on, this is the police department administrative assistant. It's laid out exactly the same as the court clerk, the administrative side of things. You'll notice in step 3, 5, and 6, there's cross-training that happens with the front of the house up here with our court clerk and our water clerk. This is where it becomes important, where I was saying before that the department that they're cross-training in is the one that decides if the person is qualified to move to the step. So it would not be chief that would say, this person is qualified to do the court clerk position. It would be the city secretary who would say that she's ready. Any questions on this page or PD at all? Yep. Okay, so the next section is Public Works. And we have the Public Works Tech and the Public Works Deputy. Works the exact same way. We have the steps, the qualifiers for each step, the per hour, and the annual rate. So if you have any questions on this, it would be Stephen would be ready to answer those. No? Okay. And then last one is the water. And again, the same layout, same steps, the qualifiers for those steps, the per hour, and the annual. If you notice in step 1, it says no license required, not no experience. They can come in without a license, but they have to meet all the job qualifications that would be in a job description in order to get that position. Anything there? Okay. Any questions overall?
Over on the right side, questions, comments on anything that have been presented?
Just one thing, the last pages, water stuff,
Yes, sir.
those pay rates. Those pay rates are independent of service. They're primarily based on qualifications and licenses.
That's correct.
Just a couple comments.
Yes, ma'am.
Great work. A lot of work went into this, you can really tell. We're a small city. We've got a lot of our staff that has kind of other duties as assigned. How did you guys deal with that? I mean, our city secretary might not have the same responsibilities as another city secretary, or our water clerk might have, additional responsibilities. How did y'all?
We looked at them very independent of the other cities. We didn't look at what the job descriptions are because, like you said, there's no way to do, it's apples and oranges all the way.
Right.
So we took the actual employee out of the discussion and looked at just the job duties that they do.
Okay. Yeah, I don't guess there's any real perfect way to get to that
No,
job description.
no.
Also-
We looked at everything with the Garden Ridge effect.
Right, right. Also, how would you deal with something like somebody who added a degree while they were working here or won an award? Does that play any part in their salary?
The city has certificate pay.
Okay.
So based on different certificates, they do get additional pay for that.
Okay.
However, the city does not have certificate pay to cover degrees.
Okay,
Now, in the future going forward, when we have new people come in at a department head or higher, then part of the weighing qualification for that would be what's your education level, what's your experience, adding all those together to slide them in that scale somewhere.
okay. And other than I know the police department has longevity pay built in there, but not any on the city hall side?
The city has longevity pay for all of the employees. It's $120 a year after the first year.
Okay, great, thank you.
It's very well written, and actually it was easy to follow.
Okay, I'm
Not even
glad.
confusing, but very detailed.
Good.
A lot of work went into this, not only from y'all, but I'm sure for every department head too.
Yes.
If you would, take me through your thoughts and the reasoning for our city secretary's modest increase in pay and our chief of police's almost embarrassing increase in pay?
Well, because we're working off of that survey. So there's no other reason for it but the survey.
I followed the survey pretty well, and there wasn't a lot of entries for the city secretary, but there was for police chief, and as far as I'm concerned, he's extremely below what even an average might be. Again, explain to me your thinking other than the survey, because the survey is misleading. You've got a bunch of different cities in there that have different income abilities, and some that you may not have ever even been to see what they do and how much crime they may have or things like that. The city secretary position also. Explain to me why our city secretary has such a modest increase compared to everybody else, and the chief has little to none.
Well, again, it's based on this, off of the survey. It's based off of those cities. It's not based off of local surrounding area, which would show different for all positions, not just those two positions.
Okay, based on the survey, give me an example on the survey of the police chief's modest increase or ridiculous increase.
Give you an
I've looked it over and over and over, and I can't see anything except he's in the bottom tier of anybody that might be in his position.
Okay.
And personally, I think he's worth a lot more than that.
Okay. I mean, I don't know what to tell you, except I used the survey for this use. I used it evenly across the board, applied it evenly across the board. The average, when you add that up, is 85K, and then it's bringing it up to 89. If I'm not mistaken, I'd have to go back and check it, but I think Cibolos was 88K, but I would have to go back and check that. But it was one that I looked at, but I did not use.
Okay, this will make me be a little bit easier. And again, I think everybody here is worth everything y'all are proposing, so don't get me wrong with that. But let me go ahead, because it's a little bit easier to answer.
Okay.
Why are you and Nancy Kane's increases so much higher?
Because we're paid so much lower than the surrounding areas currently.
And our city secretary and our police chief is not?
No, not based
Okay.
on the
All right,
survey.
that's enough. I'll make my recommendations when we vote on it.
Okay.
Anything else?
I think the level of work that went into this is extraordinary, and that you made it simple enough that even I can figure it out. I don't have any questions right now. I'll see if I think of anything.
Thank you. Councilwoman Bauer.
Yes, these are somewhat in order. Actually, the question was asked about the survey, and you've answered that. I had that question, and the maximum as well. What is the current review plan for increase? I mean, how, just the annual review that I know that department heads perform of their employees in their department?
Well, right now, there is an annual review.
That's all we have right now, right?
That's all we have, yes.
Okay. Where do employees, part-time employees, I know you referenced part-time in here, as far as do we have an established percentage? And it might have been in the copy, so I'm sorry if I didn't understand it, where, for example, Jack and Ryan would fall.
No, we eventually are going to add the part-timers to this.
Okay,
The part-timers were not part of what went in with the fiscal +21 budget,
right,
so they will become a part of this
okay, going forward.
going forward, yes.
Okay. And how, I think it was probably just a process, because we didn't have an established, because this is such a fine document. Some of the people, there were 6 people that were exceeding the qualified steps at this point. Is that just because the way things were done as far as promotions or salary reviews and so on? So they
Yes,
sort of
ma'am.
have to stay essentially where they are in their current step.
Until they meet that,
Until they
that
meet
step. I mean, it may be one thing that's holding them back,
Right.
and they have to do that one, and then they'll move up to the next level.
Okay. There was I have to reference my page, I'm sorry. I had a question, it may have been answered. It's just clarification, page 7. Last paragraph on step pay plan says employees who are on disciplinary probation due to corrective action that results in a reduction of pay, comma, may no longer qualify for the pay. Is that actually may? Is that make it arbitrary, or is it will not?
Well, it's
Will not.
May, so it depends on how the probation or how it affects them. I mean, each one could be individual.
I mean, if they're on probation, not just because of new hire, but they're on probation for disciplinary action, you say may no longer qualify. So what you're saying is if they successfully complete the probation, they will qualify, or I'm asking, will they therefore qualify for the pay associated with the step they align to?
If they finish their
Probation.
probation, and yeah.
Okay, okay. How much, again, this is just sort of general for the policy. How much notice does a department head have to give you when they make, I understand it's not, increases and so on are not retroactive. How much notice do they have to give you in a pay period, for example, to say, I recommend so-and-so, or inform you that so-and-so has completed such and such qualifications?
Well, first of all, it needs to be budgeted for. So if they're not having the forethought to budget for their employees, we could have an issue that the funds are not there. And then, as it's stated in the policy, that would be the call of our city administrator and
Right,
what funds
right,
are available.
There is a section there, right.
They have to let me know, well, like we did the payroll today for the previous week. So, I mean, it's pretty real time. So yeah, if someone would have let me know on Friday that they had a person who had an increase, we would start it. Well, it goes into effect per the policy with the first full pay period after they earn it. And that's just because if they earn it halfway in between a pay period, that,
Yeah, we're only talking a couple of weeks. So-
Right,
Right,
right.
okay. And step advancements are approved only by the department head, or do they have to have, are they subject to further review by either yourself or Ms. Kane or the mayor?
well, generally, when they come to me, when there's any type of an increase, I do review it. And if I have any questions, I will take it to
Sure.
the city administrator.
Right.
But it should have been budgeted for. So if it's been budgeted for, then there's not an issue.
And they essentially complete that step, then it's,
Yes.
I'm not saying automatic, but it flows
Correct.
easier.
And they give it to me in writing, so I have backup for the payroll.
Okay. No, I think these are more specific, and I think you've answered them. Thanks.
Sure.
Okay, looking over on the right side, anybody have anything else? Questions?
And looking at the city selected to compare with Garden Ridge, we were just not able to get numbers on the blanks that were there?
No, the reason we use this survey is these are the cities that answered it. This is what went to with the budget.
Okay.
So, yeah, I could have jumped ship in the middle, but this is what the budget was based on, so I wanted to keep it with what we were using at the time.
Okay.
Anything else on the left side? Ms. Ford, anything else to add?
I have nothing else to add.
And Ms. Kane, anything else to add?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Ford. And department heads, thank you for all that you put into to making this happen and all that we see in front of us. So now moving on to item number 5A2, to take action on this plan. Would anyone care to make a motion on this?
I move we accept this plan with the exception of an 8% increase in the proposed salary for the chief and for our city secretary. And you can do that right now. That's a pretty easy calculation, or we can bring this back for another vote. I mean, we'd like to get it to approved today, so. That's my motion.
Okay, so I have a motion from place 3 to approve this as presented with the exception of, is this an additional 8%?
No, it's an 8% off their base salary right now.
An 8% increase for the chief of police and the city secretary. And a second? Okay. Without a second, that motion dies. Can I get any other motions for this, for action on this?
Can I have ask a question? I mean, what does that 8% jump them up to, Brian?
That would be shy of $70,000 a year for Ms. Spencer and shy of $95,000 a year for the chief.
And how much does that add to the budget?
I didn't know we were dealing with a budget. I thought we were dealing with surveys right now.
Right.
So the budget is in.
If we're asking questions, don't we we budgeted 69,000 or something like that? But because we're doing it partway through the year, we're only using up about 35 of it?
Correct.
That's correct, but we do need to remember that every year it's an annual amount.
Right. That's the part I've been sitting here trying to, mull over in my brain is what's the budgetary impact going to be long-term for that? It has nothing to do with thinking they're worth it or not, because they're worth more than that, but.
Any other questions? Mike?
We have a proposal from Brian. Is it still open?
It is still open. We have no second on it right now. It can
I'll
die or-
second.
Okay, we have a second. Any further discussion or questions? Okay, roll call vote, starting in place 1 for a motion to approve this as presented with an 8% increase for the chief and for the city secretary, and a second from place 1. Place 1, vote.
Aye.
Place 2. Place 3. Place 4. Place 5.
Aye.
Okay, the motion is carried. It's going to be what we have here, with the exception of an 8% increase for the chief of police and for the city secretary. Moving on to item number 6, citizen comments. Any citizens have any comments? You don't have to have signed up ahead of time. Okay, having none. Moving on to item number 7, adjournment. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn, but thank you very much for all your hard work, everybody.
Motion place 3. Can I get a second?
Second.
Place 2 with a second. Any further discussion, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous. We are adjourned at 2:43 PM.